Welcome to Pulse Worship at Cathedral of Hope today, and thank you so much for spending a part of your day with us. My name is Reverend Andrea, and I'm one of the ministers here at Cathedral of Hope. In just a few minutes, we're going to get our worship started. Our musicians are going to offer a worship set with uplifting music, with praise, and with prayer, and an opportunity to share our gifts for the benefit of our God. We'll have a word that is sure to leave you inspired, and we'll close out our worship service with some more music that is going to carry you through the week. Now is a great time to check in. Just follow the links in the comments to register your attendance and to offer any prayer requests or celebrations that you'd like us to attend to throughout the week. There are many ways to stay connected to Cathedral of Hope all throughout the week. So in the description of this video, we're offering links to our small groups, to our weekly email, and to our Facebook CFAM. Make sure you check them out. Finally, we post content throughout the week on Facebook and on YouTube, so make sure you hit the subscribe and follow buttons. And if you like this worship service, please give it a thumbs up and hit share so that you can invite your friends to worship with you. With all that said, our worship is going to begin in just a few minutes, so find your seat and we'll get started shortly.
Of our God, oh yeah. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of our God. And I will rejoice, yeah, and I'm gonna be glad. All my sad days are over. Wash my
Good evening and welcome to Pulse Worship here at Cathedral of Hope, and I am so excited to be able to welcome you to worship this evening and grateful that you've chosen to spend some of your evening with us in celebration and in worship. I'm grateful today because today is the last Wednesday that we will just be gathering here online. Next Wednesday, we're going to be gathering in person at Cathedral of Hope United Church of Christ for a Wednesday Pulse Worship service. And you're invited to come and to join with us. Now, of course, if you don't feel safe doing so, then we will continue to broadcast our services online. But next Wednesday, if you want to be here in person, then please do make sure that you register for a seat in the sanctuary. We're keeping strict CDC guidelines with social distancing and masks, making sure that everyone is as safe as possible. So you do need to register for a seat. Of course, this Sunday is Palm Sunday, and next Sunday is, yes, it is Easter Sunday. And we are also going to be doing in-person worship at 9 and 11 o'clock. Same rules apply. You need to make sure that you have a seat in the sanctuary. So please do register. Register your attendance tonight, register your attendance for next Wednesday, and of course for Easter Sunday. We are excited to be able to regather, but we're only going to do it safely, and we're only going to do it provided that everyone makes sure that we keep within the guidelines that have been laid out for us. So with that, Palm Sunday, Easter Sunday, Pulse Worship, in-person worship, so much to be excited about as we gather this evening. So I invite you just to allow the Spirit to wash over you as we join together in worship this night. God bless you, Cathedral of Hope United Church of Christ.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, goodness of God.
When Jesus was at Bethany, a guest of Simon the leper, a woman came up to him as he was eating dinner and anointed him with a bottle of very expensive perfume. When the disciples saw what was happening, they were furious. "That's criminal. This could have been sold for a lot and the money handed out to the poor." When Jesus realized what was going on, he intervened. "Why are you giving this woman a hard time? She has just done something wonderfully significant for me. You will have the poor with you every day for the rest of your lives, but not me. When she poured this perfume on my body, what she really did was anoint me for burial." You can be sure that wherever in the whole world the message is preached, what she has just done is going to be remembered and admired.
This is the day our God has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. My friends, in our gospel story today, we should rejoice. We should rejoice even though we find people saying and doing scandalous things, controversial things. It's the kind of stuff that people gossip about, right? The stuff people read about on TMZ or on page 6 of the New York Post. And I'm sure in Jesus' day, the newspapers and the blogs, they were having a field day, right? I can see the headlines now. Jesus befriends yet another woman. Jesus says no to snake oil, but yes to woman's oil. I can see this one. Not even Jesus can resist a madam and her essential oils. Oh, how salacious. My friends, like the Kardashians or the British monarchy of today, the one we call Jesus the Christ was no stranger to bad press or the salacious headlines in the first century. Now, for Jesus, it was sort of par for the course, right? He knows people are going to talk about him. He knows the religious leaders are going to try to malign his name, right? They're going to whisper inaccuracies. They're going to speak incomplete truths, and they're going to try to spread juicy gossip to others. And that's okay, because Jesus isn't worried about the bad press. He isn't concerned about society's notions of who is clean or unclean. He isn't worried about the number of disreputable individuals that he eats with or associates with on a regular basis. Well, for Jesus, his life is about sharing the good news of God's unconditional love with people, all people, even if doing so gets him into trouble with some of the bloggers or the press or the religious leaders or with the powers that be. And so because he doesn't care about the potential headlines, in today's gospel, Jesus visits the house of Simon, the one others called the leper. Now, we don't know if Simon was formerly afflicted with a skin disease or if he was now healed or if Jesus has anything to do with it. But what we do know is that the label has stuck with Simon for a long time. People of God, isn't it interesting how others will continually try to define us by the afflictions we've had to endure? And even after we've overcome the struggles, right, and overcome our ailments, society continually tries to only view us through the lens of that particular struggle. Well, it was no different for Simon. He might be a victim of such a predicament, and we're not completely sure, but what is clear is that Jesus is not concerned about the so-called leper status of Simon. Whereas others might stay away from him, lest they be put in the same box as him, Jesus not only ignores the potential social stigma, but he embraces Simon by actually being in his house. Now, maybe Jesus is a regular at Simon the leper's house. Maybe this is their regular Wednesday night small group meeting. What's clear, though, is that Jesus has no qualms about being in his house. Now, maybe Simon was known for hosting a good kiki, right? Where good salt of the earth people, they showed up. People like you and me. Well, the scriptures say that a certain woman shows up. Well, evidently, she's a proper socialite, right? She's had her training. She knows that you don't show up to a little house gathering without any gifts in hand. And sometimes your pretty smile isn't enough, so you have to bring something, right? Whereas some might bring flowers or others a bottle of wine. She decides to bring an alabaster jar, and it's filled with oil. Of course, this oil isn't for cooking. It ain't Crisco. No, this oil is expensive. It's aromatic. This oil is for Jesus. The scriptures say the woman began to pour the oil on Jesus' head, and Jesus does not stop her. Now, the disciples, they're there, and they are seeing this. And I'm sure they wanted to protect Jesus, right? Jesus is not so worried about his image, but I know the disciples were, right? I'm sure Peter was there, just shaking his head, whispering to the others, "Oh, Lord, look at this. What will the religious leaders think when they find out about this?" I can hear Peter and John and the others whispering to each other. Now, this woman ought to be ashamed of herself, putting Jesus in this scandalous position of being anointed with oil by some random woman. And not only that, very expensive oil. Excuse me, Jesus is an advocate for the poor. He talks about bringing down the high and the mighty, the rich and the powerful. And you think he approves of you wasting this expensive oil when you could have sold it to help people in need? My friends, I can hear them talk even today. Now Jesus, he doesn't say a thing at first. But then he pulls the disciples aside and he says, "Will you leave her alone? She's doing something good. She is doing a good thing. She's doing a good thing for me." People of God, when I first read this story this past week, I thought to myself, the disciples, they sort of have a point. Why is Jesus so adamant in defending this woman, right? Defending her use of this expensive oil. Why is he defending her? And then I began to wonder, are the disciples criticizing her because of the oil, or are they criticizing her because it's a woman with oil? Maybe if it was a man offering oil to Jesus, they wouldn't be as concerned. But because it's a woman, the situation is potentially scandalous. And so maybe the disciples, they feel a sort of righteous indignation to put this woman with the alabaster jar in her rightful place. Now, the text doesn't say exactly that, but we all know how we men can be sometimes. We men, we love critiquing what women wear, what kind of makeup women have on, how much makeup women have on. We love critiquing how women live their lives, how they raise their kids. We critique whether someone has kids or whether they do not have any kids. And even what they do with their oils and their perfumes and how they smell. We love critiquing women. And people of God, maybe Jesus is calling out his male, cisgender, privileged disciples for their gender-based prejudice. Now, if it was a man giving Jesus oil, they wouldn't have said a thing. But because it's a woman, all of a sudden, they feel offended, right? They feel the need to be scandalized by this woman's presence and her oils. Think about it. How many of you have been criticized for the gifts you bring to the Lord just because of the supposed scandalous nature of your life? Whether you're a cisgender woman or a trans woman, whether you're a gay man with effeminate graces or a butch lesbian, or maybe a queer child of God that does not fit neatly into any of society's boxes. I'm sure the religious folks, they talked about the woman with the alabaster jar, and they have talked about you, they have whispered about you, they have criticized you and the gifts you bring to God simply because of the scandalous nature of who God calls you to be. My friends, it happened to the woman, and it happens to all of us. It might be people at work, people in your family, friends you vacation with or loved ones you live with. It happens to all of us. But fear not. Fear not, and instead rejoice. Rejoice, because just as Jesus defended the woman with the alabaster jar, Jesus stands by you. Jesus defends you. Jesus is appreciating the gifts that you bring through the life God has called you to live. People of God, don't ever let the potential judgment of others keep you from offering your best to God and to the one we call the Christ. No matter what kind of oil you bring, if it has value to you, Jesus receives it. The oil in the alabaster jar, that oil meant so much to that woman, and it had a great deal of value. And she wanted to offer her best oil to Jesus, and Jesus allowed her to do so. Oh, how scandalous. What's also scandalous is what Jesus says when the disciples use the excuse of helping the poor to defend their bias. We could have sold that oil and given the money to the poor, they say. And Jesus says, the poor will always be with you. Now, although it might sound harsh, Jesus is actually referring to Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 11, where the law tells the ancient Israelites, right, that the poor and the needy, they will always be with you. So continually open your hand to those in need. The poor and the needy will always be with you. So continually open your hand to those in need. And so when Jesus says the poor will always be with you, he's not saying there will always be poor people, so forget about them for now and take time to honor me instead. No, Jesus isn't saying that. Jesus is saying the poor will always be with you. So keep giving generously, keep helping, keep opening your hand to those in need, even if it is to me, says Jesus. Give, just give. Give your best oils to everyone around you, because you never know who is actually in need. I wonder if the woman with the alabaster oil sensed that maybe Jesus was in need. You see, just a few verses later, Jesus is betrayed by one of his closest friends, Judas, right? And a few verses later, Jesus is arrested. Yes, he's the Messiah, but can you imagine, for a minute, can you imagine the emotional wreck he might have been going through? Thank God for this woman. Thank God for her awareness, her empathy, her loyalty to Jesus and his humanity. She puts this oil upon him, reminding him that he is literally the anointed one, right? Oil, this ancient sign of God's presence. It was an affirmation for him. It was a reminder to Jesus to say, hey, you got this. The religious leaders, they might criticize you, Jesus. The Romans with their King Caesar, they might arrest you and treat you like you are a common criminal, a nobody. But this woman says, I want you to know, Jesus, that you are somebody to me. You are my King. You are my Messiah. You are my anointed one. Who knows, people of God? Maybe this woman, maybe this unnamed and unknown woman, maybe it was her that gave Jesus that final encouragement that he needed to get through those trials of his final days before the cross. Jesus, the Messiah, the anointed one, he risked it all for you and for me. And the unnamed and the unknown woman risked her most valuable possession, literally risked it all for Jesus, anointing him with precious oil. People of God, don't you ever doubt the impact of the gifts that you bring to Jesus. It doesn't matter if people don't know your name or even who you are. When you offer your skills, your talents, your very best, your best emotions and your spiritual efforts, your most valuable gifts, when you offer your expensive oils to Christ out of deep love, Jesus receives them, and he receives them with open arms. So don't worry about the bloggers, don't worry about the haters and all those who are scandalized by your life. People will criticize you for simply breaking open your precious alabaster jar. They will judge you for offering your best oils to Christ and to those in need. But remember, Jesus will always remember all that you have done for him and for all God's children. The good news is, Jesus remembers you. Amen.
Trust in the Lord always, and again I say, I will rejoice. I will rejoice and be glad.
If you've missed moments like these, join us for in-person worship next Wednesday, March 31st, as we celebrate returning to church for the first time in over a year. Our service will feature Voices of Hope and band, all our clergy, snacks and fellowship time in the plaza, and an opportunity to see your Cathedral of Hope friends and family. Make sure you register and feel free to bring a friend.
Your will